a city on life support,
It's just such devastation and poverty and crime and drugs.
gets a new lease on life.
There's nothing wrong with this city that can't be fixed.
Plus, storm chasing a hurricane.
Morgan has always wanted to see a storm.
A family takes a hit, and their daughter's life hangs in the balance.
They told us that the chance of her surviving is not good. And is she a donor?
Well, welcome, folks, to this edition of the 700 Club. The Boston bombings have reignited the fear of terrorism across the nation. You've also renewed the fear that America could even get into a surveillance society.
Well, the terror attack has politicians debating national security and immigration. But as John Jessup reports, the American people are just as worried about their privacy.
After cameras captured the chaotic scene at the Boston Marathon finish line, the city's police chief said he wants more cameras to help law enforcement keep watch on possible high-value target areas downtown. A collection of video feeds, both public and private, and even cell phone images, help police identify their suspects. Now, other cities, in an attempt to prevent possible attacks, may want to follow suit. But privacy advocates caution against a rush to set up more cameras in cities across the country.
Preventing crimes is not something that camera systems have shown to be particularly useful for.
Mark Rotenberg directs EPIC, a privacy research group in downtown Washington. His organization keeps a watchful eye on those who are monitoring D.C.'s vast network of cameras. While Rotenberg believes the technology can be useful, he says it's also limited.
You look at study after study, and the lesson that you take away is that cameras can be helpful after the fact, but they rarely prevent crimes, and they certainly didn't in Boston.
Texas Congressman Louis Gohmert has other concerns.
Technology is a fantastic instrument to fight crime, but the danger is that everyone gets monitored all the time.
He's worried the expansion of surveillance could lead to government overreach, with Big Brother capable of knowing what virtually everyone's been doing.
We're close to that now. They have the capability of going on and finding out what you've purchased or what websites you go to, what emails you send.
It's an even greater concern with the use of unmanned drones flying over U.S. airspace.
Drone surveillance raises issues that are similar to the camera surveillance in cities. This is another useful technology. It has public benefit, but this should not become a type of surveillance of all activity that people engage in. That would be going too far.
The advent of newer technologies will continue to spark concerns about privacy. And in a post 9/11 world, the trade-off between feeling secure and maintaining one's privacy will be debated for years to come. John Jessup, CBN News, Washington.
Thanks, John. Ladies and gentlemen, if you read that chilling book, 1984, George Orwell, it was a shocker when it was published. Now people kind of take it for granted. But think what would happen when you wake up in the morning, there's a camera, watches what you do, you walk out of your home, you have to log into some kind of a box that tells where you are, at what time you started your day, and then do you get on a bus, do you get in your car, what do you do? And what do you do during the day? When you get to your office, you punch another button, you log in. All the time, you're under surveillance. Every time you move. When is there freedom? Well, there is no freedom, and that was the whole premise of 1984. There came a time when, quote, Big Brother monitored everything. We're coming to that now. It's not a pleasant situation, but this is what the Bible talks about when it says you can't buy or sell without the mark of the beast. You have to be part of that world system, and a few, and very, very few, can escape, because right now they can go down into the bush in the darkest Africa and hunt you down. So you say, well, we're going to feel secure. Secure from whom? And I think the American people are more afraid of the overreach of big government than they are some occasional bomber. Even if the bomber kills a few people, they would still rather have their freedom than to have Big Brother in constant surveillance. Well, the FBI says that they have thwarted a new terror attack. Lee Webb has more from the CBN newsroom. Here's Lee.
And Pat, this time the suspect is said to be part of an American militia group. 24-year-old Buford Rogers was arrested at his Minnesota home. Authorities found pipe bombs, Molotov cocktails, and a Romanian-made assault rifle. Officials say he was planning attacks against local residents and possibly against government officials. The FBI says the alleged plot was discovered through intelligence gathered by local, state, and federal authorities. The Obama administration is accusing China's military of carrying out computer-based attacks against the U.S. The accusations come in the Pentagon's annual report to Congress. It says China has been spying on U.S. diplomatic, economic, and defense programs. The report also warns that the computer skills needed for this kind of spying are similar to the kind needed to conduct cyber warfare. This is the first time the U.S. has so directly accused the Chinese government and its military of using cyber attacks to steal U.S. government strategy. The deadly attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi is back in the spotlight on Capitol Hill. A high-level State Department official is now challenging the White House's account of what happened on 9/11 last year, and that's fueling Republican charges that the Obama administration is engaged in a cover-up. George Thomas reports.
3 men, all career State Department employees, will testify this week that the White House misled the country on what happened at the U.S. diplomatic mission in Benghazi, Libya. One of them is Gregory Hicks. He was the number 2 man in Libya. He will tell Congress that he knew immediately the attack wasn't in response to a protest. According to interview transcripts, Hicks says, "I thought it was a terrorist attack from the get-go. I think everybody in the mission thought it was a terrorist attack from the beginning." U.S. Ambassador to Libya Chris Stevens died in the attack along with 3 other Americans. Yet 5 days after the attack on September 11, 2012, UN Ambassador Susan Rice went on multiple Sunday shows blaming the incident on an anti-Muslim video that appeared on the internet. She insisted the attack was spontaneous. Some Republicans say the administration's response was calculated, coming on the heels of a presidential election less than 2 months away.
Well, clearly there was a political decision to say something different than what was reasonable to say.
Hicks will also testify that a small team of U.S. Special Forces were ready to fly a rescue mission to Benghazi, but were ordered to stand down. This directly contradicts the White House, which said all available resources were explored to respond to the attacks. This past weekend, several Democrats said Rice's comments about the attack were wrong, and that references to Islamic extremists and Al-Qaeda were scrubbed from her so-called talking points. Some Republicans accused the Obama administration of trying to downplay the threat posed by terrorists.
There's sort of a tendency to underplay what is in fact, I think, a growing and pretty dangerous and to some extent a different kind of threat than what we were facing, 3 or 4 years ago.
Hicks has also told investigators that Ambassador Rice's response may have hampered efforts to capture those responsible for the Benghazi attacks, saying, "I firmly believe that the reason it took us so long to get the FBI to Benghazi is because of those Sunday talk shows." Hicks and the 2 State Department employees will speak publicly for the first time Wednesday when they appear before Congress. George Thomas, CBN News.
Pat, until this point, basically this story has only been covered by more conservative, less viewed, if you will, news organizations. I found it interesting, though, that yesterday on the Washington Post webpage, this was the headline story.
Well, let's face it, what was the big thing about Watergate? It was the Nixon administration lying to Congress, lying about what was going on, trying to subvert the agencies of government. Well, the liberal media jumped on Richard Nixon and brought him down. He finally had to resign. But we've got a president now who deliberately lies. This is a lie. There's no question about it. They have an agenda. The agenda is we have won the war on terror, so there isn't a war on terror anymore. And Al-Qaeda is no longer an operative force. It is just a band of rogues occasionally out there. And so if anything happens, it has to be spontaneous because of a video. And so some low-level staffer in the Cairo embassy decided that she, I believe it was a she, was going to apologize for what the United States did. And we're sorry. And after that, some of these things began. But the whole thought that this was spontaneous demonstration in relation to a video was just made out of whole cloth, and they were just a series of lies. Hillary Clinton apparently was involved in lying. Susan Rice was set up as the fall guy, and she made those the round on the Sunday talk shows and said this misinformation over and over again. How long are the American people going to put up with this? Well, you say it. Most people, they don't care. I mean, Benghazi, who cares? Well, I mean, it makes a great deal of difference if your president doesn't tell you the truth. Lee?
Pat, the U.S. Senate has voted to allow new taxes for internet sales. Right now, most internet shopping is tax-free, but this bill would allow each state to start taxing internet sales as they choose. Supporters say the new taxes will level the playing field for brick-and-mortar stores that have lost business to online retailers. But many smaller online companies say they may not be able to keep up with the tax requirements across the numerous states where they do business. The bill, though, faces an uphill battle in the House. Obamacare could cause thousands of very sick people to lose insurance coverage. The pre-existing condition insurance plan is supposed to help those considered uninsurable, but the program is in danger because the federal government has capped spending at $5 billion. That leaves the states with the rest of the bill. In a letter to the Health and Human Services Secretary, a leading state health official said enrollees also appear to be at risk of increases in both premiums and out-of-pocket costs that may make continued enrollment cost prohibitive. He also warns that many people will simply lose their insurance coverage, Pat.
You know, Lee, it breaks my heart. It should break the heart of every thinking American that we have destroyed, or in the process of destroying, the greatest health system in the entire world. This thing is a monstrosity. The people who voted for it never read it. They didn't know what was in it. Nancy Pelosi said we've got to pass it so we can find out what's in it. And the hidden consequences are the gigantic, just hidden consequences. And they're just starting to come to light, and they're going to come to light over and over again. People are going to be hurt. Poor families are going to be damaged. The American economy is going to be hurt. It was a disaster. And this was the centerpiece of the Obama administration. He's pleased that it's called Obamacare. Well, he shouldn't be. But what Mitt Romney suggests, and others have said, the whole thing needs to be scrubbed. The entire law needs to be canceled and then start all over again. There's certain features in it, like the portability of insurance and so forth, that need to be put back in. But it could be done on a very, very simple basis. Nothing like this gargantuan monstrosity that we're dealing with right now. Lee?
A Bible publishing company has scored a victory in its fight against the president's contraception mandate in Obamacare. A court had blocked the government from enforcing that mandate while Tyndall Publishers was arguing the case in court. Now the Obama administration has asked a federal court to drop its appeal of that order. That means Tyndall House will not have to provide controversial abortion-causing drugs while the case moves forward in court. Pat?
Good for Tyndall. They published the Living Bible, among other things. They're great people.
That is good news. Well, coming up next, it once looked like a war zone. Now, this historic district's had a facelift. See the plan to rebuild America's poorest city when we come back. And then later on, she wanted to see a hurricane close up, and this is what it cost her. A teenager's miraculous storm survival story is still ahead.
If you've been thinking about financial options for your retirement, and maybe how to provide some real security for you and your family, you really ought to consider a reverse mortgage with AAG. In uncertain times, it's a safe, effective financial tool. It's already being used by hundreds of thousands of other Americans, It allows you to eliminate monthly mortgage payments, pay some bills, or simply enjoy your retirement more. A government-insured reverse mortgage with AEG allows seniors to stay in their home and turn their equity into tax-free cash. To qualify, there are no credit score requirements, and remember, you continue to retain complete ownership of your home.
Call 1-800-789-8635 to receive a new special edition handbook featuring reverse mortgage borrowers, plus an educational brochure and DVD presented by Fred Thompson, absolutely free.
Find out more. Call AAG today.
Call 1-800-789-8635 now.
Wednesday, the aftermath of the Arab Spring. Hear about Islam's new war against Christians. Plus, hip-hop's newest star, Andy Mineo, and why he doesn't want the fame.
When life is about you and you're in the center of it, it's so small.
And then, the Yummy Mummy shares how to get your kids to eat their fruits and veggies and turn everyday meals into something special on the 700 Club.
Across America, cities have been going bankrupt. And along with the bankruptcy, of course, is the fact that the police department isn't funded adequately and crime begins to proliferate. Chicago is considered the deadliest city in America. But it doesn't take first place. The most violent is Camden, New Jersey, which also happens to be the poorest. As Ephraim Graham reports, some longtime residents of Camden are trying to turn their city around. Watch this.
I've never found Camden to be a bad place.
Tina Scott designs clothes. She began with bridal gowns, then pioneered custom design robes for women preachers. Her garments now ship to Germany, Japan, the Caribbean, and across the United States.
Mind you, I flunked sewing in school. In high school, I had to make a purple pleated skirt and I couldn't do it, and I got a failing grade for sewing.
The seamstress and single mom has spent her life beating the odds. A perfect example came when she chose this neighborhood to start her business.
I don't know if I can describe it to you. I can reach the picture if you want me to show it to you.
Take a look. The old pictures look like they came from a war zone. Her shop, a mere shell of a building with no roof and no other businesses nearby.
It was just looking through the eyes of faith that made me know that this felt like it was what God was leading me to.
Today, Camden's revitalized historic district captures Tina's vision and more, but it's still a work in progress that doesn't stretch far enough.
Once you leave from this area, which is a lot of new buildings and a lot of new construction, and go 2 or 3 streets over, it looks like you're in a totally different place.
We visited those places.
Camden is a small city, really. It's 9 square miles.
With Michael De Leon, the New Jersey filmmaker spent 3 years shooting a documentary about the city.
There's 70,000 that they say people in Camden, and it's just so small. But no matter where you drive around the city, it's just such devastation and poverty and crime and drugs.
Camden sits in the shadow of historic Philadelphia, a thriving city just across the Delaware River. But Camden's reality is not nearly as bright. More than 42% of its population lives below the poverty level, and less than 50% of its students finish high school. At one time, Camden was a thriving factory town, home to Campbell's Soup and RCA. The race riots of 1969 and 71 left the city in ruins, and those who could afford to leave did. That was followed by years of political corruption.
What was troubling me so much about what was happening in Camden and other urban cities in New Jersey is the amount of kids that were dying due to drug overdoses and due to violence and gang violence.
As a former gang member, drug addict, and prisoner, De Leon knows his subject.
I got a member of my family killed, and it didn't stop my drug addiction, it didn't stop my gang involvement. And I was present in a room when one of my friends, a gang member, shot and killed my best friend. And I went to prison for aggravated manslaughter.
After serving 10 years, he chose to dedicate his life to help children make better choices with theirs.
There's nothing wrong with this city that can't be fixed by what's right with this city. And this city is full of people who serve God, who live the life that they're supposed to live, and they influence and in a positive way other people.
De Leon introduced us to one of those people. Tawanda Jones turns a city water tower into a dance hall 5 days a week. This is Camden's Sophisticated Sisters Drill Team, a dance troupe Jones started when she was only 15. She was inspired by her grandfather, who bought the team its first round of uniforms and drums 26 years ago.
My grandfather sees the great in everyone, and everyone. And what he just constantly just fed to me that, you know, there's not enough people that care. You have to be one of those people.
Tawanda's girls know she cares from the moment they meet.
I just met Miss Wawa only 4 months ago, and she's like a second mom. She wants so much for me, and I just can't believe how much she wants for me and how much she wants me to succeed in life, and that surprised me, you know? And I'm just so happy. I love her so much. I can't even say it enough.
When they're in that water tower, their whole expression, everything changes. Everything changes. They really leave a lot at the door, and they dance that pain away.
Take Dejanay Green, who lost her father when she was only 3.
He was riding down the street, and a drunk driver hit him, and he was on a motorcycle, and he flipped a mile or 2, I think, and he broke all his bones and died.
Even so, Dejanay is still a daddy's girl, and she thought of him when she performed on ABC's Dancing with the Stars. That's the troupe's latest honor. But Ms. Wawa says the bigger prize is her graduation rate.
We never had a dropout. We have never had a dropout. Why? God. I can't possibly take credit for none of this. You know, it's definitely all God.
Worth the price we have to pay. Everybody strong, come on. There's a dream.
What others see as Camden, you know, I really can't speak for them, you know, but this is my city and I love it.
Ephraim Graham, CBN News, Camden, New Jersey.
Well, that's an inspiring story. Camden, we didn't mention earlier, was one of the first cities in America to go bankrupt. But Terry, years ago, when I would take a train from Washington to New York, there was a big sign alongside the railroad that said, "What Camden makes, the world takes."
Well, Campbell Soup, I guess.
Campbell Soup, the world was taking, and RCA they were taking, and then all of a sudden, hey, the human spirit, indomitable, and thank goodness, Sarah, we tip our hats to these brave people in that dance troupe and others who are trying to make a difference.
What's so astonishing is it doesn't take very many people to begin the process of turning it around. It
really
takes
doesn't.
Determination and commitment.
Well, if you live in a slum, and I have lived in an area like that for a short time in Bed-Stuy, you have this feeling of hopelessness. There are people who are on drugs, people that don't have any jobs. There are people who are, that are not well educated.
Shabby and broken down.
The whole thing is just, and it feeds on itself. So but a small core can begin to make a difference.
And they have.
And they have.
Exciting. That's wonderful. Well, coming up, a family ventures out in the midst of a hurricane and gets the smackdown.
It was like a sudden stop when the tree hit the van.
What was piercing through me is the words, "Morganne's not breathing." Her tongue came out of her mouth.
See how this teenager walked out of the hospital in less than 2 weeks against all odds.
If you have Medicare and have a chronic breathing condition, you can take your medication using an inhaler. Or this, a portable nebulizer from Med4Home. Independent studies have shown a nebulizer may be more effective and easier to use than just an inhaler. Impressive. It's like getting hospital-quality treatment at home. So call Med4Home today to find out more. Med4Home is a specialty pharmacy that's here to help you however they can. They'll deal with your doctor, the paperwork, even ship for free. And their pharmacists and respiratory therapists are available 24/7. What's more, your nebulizer and medications may even be covered by your Part B benefits. for a better treatment at a much better price. Call Med4Home now to learn how a portable nebulizer can help you start breathing better today. For more information, call 1-800-210-5821.
Connie and I love having cell phones because of the freedom they give us. So why would we want to be tied down to a contract?
Life's too short.
And Consumer Cellular gives us control over how and when we use them and what we pay.
And compared to our old plan, we're saving a ton of money every month.
So what really sold us on Consumer Cellular was that they're the exclusive wireless provider for AARP members.
AARP? That's a huge deal.
Was it complicated to switch? Not a bit. They make it super simple. You can even keep your number. Oh, that's nice.
Consumer Cellular, affordable service without the contracts. Try Consumer Cellular risk-free for 30 days with free activation, a $35 value, and free shipping. Or just pick it up at a Sears store. Plans start as low as $10 a month.
Call Consumer Cellular at 1-800-393-4301. Go to consumercellulartv.com or visit a Sears store today.
Teenager Morganne Roundy had always wanted to see a hurricane firsthand. And when Irene hit Virginia in 2011, her dream came true. But her parents' worst nightmare had just begun.
Morganne has always wanted to see a storm. She kind of said, can we just drive out and see what the water levels are doing? It wasn't really bad when we left. We started to see a few signs of some tree branches down, and the consensus was we would just go ahead and head towards home.
It was like a sudden stop when the tree hit the van. It was kind of like a dream.
What was piercing through me is the words, Morganne's not breathing. And all I could see was her knees covered with her hair sprawled over, and her hands, both of her arms, just hanging lifelessly at the side. Her dad, and he puts his hands through, the window, and he puts his hands underneath her chin, and he just gently lifts it up. And her tongue kind of came out of her mouth, and her eyes started to like a seizure a little bit, roll a little bit. But there was no expression in her eyes at all. She wasn't making any contact. There was no recognition, but she started to breathe. She started to breathe. And we just kept praying.
As soon as the response team came, we left the side of the van as they were coming in with the board.
And I was praying the whole time. I don't know if anyone thought I was in my right mind at that time, but I kept asking my baby, Jesus, help my baby. They brought Morganne back into the emergency room, and they were telling us that it was critical. The next thing I know, we were upstairs in the surgery room, the pre-op. They were very candid, and they told us that the chance of her surviving is not good. And is she a donor? It was really hard to walk into the room and to see her. She had tubes coming out the back of her skull and a round device about this big that was capturing the drain of the blood and the fluid that was still coming out. And her dad had gone to one of the rooms to sleep, and when he came back, and I remember him saying, is Morganne awake? And she opened her eyes. She kind of turned her head towards him. He came over there and he just kind of bent down and kissed her. Says, I love you. And she nodded her head, just grabbed his hand.
After the accident, I remember being in the hospital room. I remember asking what day it was. They told me it was Tuesday. I thought it was all a dream, and they're like, no, it really happened.
She was in therapy for about a week. She had to be able to walk completely unattended.
It was really hard because I stood up, and the moment I would stand up, it's kind of like you're spinning around in a circle 100 times and you stop. You're like really dazed. That's how I was. So it was a long process, but once I got to leave, I was so excited, so happy to go.
And after 13 days, she was able to walk out of the hospital on her own 2 feet. As far as school goes, we had to have a team study meeting because the school would not allow her to come back to school while she had to wear the helmet and didn't have the bone in for protection.
My swelling, it looked like I had a bone in there. Like the swelling was so big, it was over my head. It was bigger than the right side.
We had reached out to our community of friends who prayed and asked for that swelling to go down, and the next morning it had completely gone down. So when she went to have the staples removed, they agreed it was wonderful and she'd be able to have the surgery.
Just happy that I'm getting to go and I'm putting the bone back in my head. I don't have to wear this silly helmet anymore. And that helmet was kind of like a symbol of that, you know, you're not independent. You have to wear this wherever you go.
When they wheeled her out and we got to see her for the first time, she was so swollen. Her eyes were swollen because she couldn't open them. Her face kind of disappeared in the swellingness of everything. It was very intense. And her pain level was so much more than the first time.
When I got home, I had physical therapy, and that was intense. I got really angry. I was like, where's my memory? Why can't I understand this?
She had a lot of makeup work.
What would normally have taken me just a quick 15 minutes took me over 3 hours.
She just worked her way through it, and she got it all turned back in and caught up within a few months. To have her finally graduate, it was hard. But to realize that she was going to get to graduate with her class, with her friends that she grew up with. I think everyone teared up when she walked across that stage. Very proud of her and very thankful to God.
I am completely 100% recovered now. I have short hair, and if you pull around, you can kind of see a scar. And if you feel around, you can feel the screws. But I don't get those headaches anymore. My memory's fine.
This was the hardest thing I've ever went through in my whole life, was seeing her like that. But yet, faith is not what you see. It's not what you feel. Real faith is being completely convinced and absolutely certain that God's word is true.
We wanted you to see Morganne's story today because we want to pray for you. And her story is such an indicative sign of God's faithfulness, of his love for his children, of his hearing our prayers, of his ability to do what doctors cannot do. And we want to pray for you and your need today. We've got some prayer reports.
Her mother says, we want you to believe that God's word is true. Here's something, Terry. There's Heather. She lived in, I don't know if they call it Arab, Alabama, was having a hard time breathing, and her temperature reached 104 degrees. Mother took her to the ER where the doctor diagnosed her with bronchitis, so forth and so on. Anyhow, she was watching this program. Terry gave a word of knowledge. You have a bronchial condition. Just breathe in now, and all that will loosen up, and your swelling is gone away. And lo and behold,
praise the Lord,
a miracle took place.
Well, this is Kimberly. She lives in Saginaw, Michigan. Last November, she felt a lump in her throat. She hoped it would go away, but over months, it got to the point she couldn't catch her breath when she went for her evening walks. So she decided to see the doctor, but before she made the appointment, she turned on this program. She began watching a repeat of the previous day's show. And Pat, you had a word of knowledge. You said you've got a stricture in your throat. Your throat feels like it's closing up on you. Yeah. Right now, God's opening that up. There's peace coming. Peace like a river is flowing. She thought, that's for me. So she touched her throat with one hand and the television with the other. She felt peace. She went to sleep. The next morning, that lump was completely gone. Completely gone. She could breathe normally.
Folks, God's alive.
Mm-hmm.
God is almighty. God is all powerful. With him, all things are possible. There's nothing impossible with God. Now, I'm going to ask you to pray. Terry and I will join hands and we'll pray together, and we'll all pray for you and everybody. So we're going to join right now. Father, in Jesus' precious, holy name, may the power of God touch people's lives. Somebody's got a bone spur. I guess it's in your heel, a bone spur, and it's very painful. And you say, it's a calcium deposit that is sticking into something, and right now it's literally melting away, and it will be gone. Terry.
Someone else, you have an ocular problem. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it's affected your vision. More than that, it's uncomfortable. It's just like a sensation you get in your eyes that causes you to rub them and just affects your vision. God's clearing that up for you right now.
You have a nervous condition. You're shaking. It's not Parkinson's, but it acts like that. Right now, God is just healing you. The nerves are going to be completely whole. Those nerves were like on fire, and the nerve sheaths have been exposed. And right now, that nerve lining is being restored. God is doing a creative miracle in you. Your shaking will stop in Jesus' name. One more, Terry.
There's someone else you're watching and you're frustrated because everything being mentioned is a physical need, and you have an emotional and psychological need. Estrangement from your mom. God is healing that situation. When he begins to open that door, receive it and walk through it.
Lord, meet their needs. Touch lives in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Wherever you are, we're here. Well, coming up later, we've got your email.
We do. Jazzy says, I've been a Christian ever since I was 5 years old. I'm 19 now. Now that I'm older, I'm ready to have a real friendship with God, but how do I do it? Well, we're going to bring it on with Jazzy's question and more, and that's still ahead.
From CBN.
Nineveh. God wanted me to warn them he was about to pass judgment. I say no. If Nineveh is doomed, then let it be doomed.
Give the children you love the Word of God as a foundation in their lives. Call the number below and receive Superbook's newest episode, Jonah, for your gift of $25.
People of Nineveh!
Everyone deserves a second chance. Superbook, Jonah, available now.
In 2008, my husband Gary departed for heaven. I was still grieving. And then to find out I had cancer, I began praying, God, how do I do this? Where do I do this? Cancer Treatment Centers of America was the place. Dr. Neelam outlined a plan that would take care of my mind and my body, and she prayed with me.
For Bible-believing Christians, we're able to pray with them in a much deeper way as they begin to really rely upon their faith.
At Cancer Treatment Centers of America, we believe in the power of faith and prayer as indispensable allies in the fight against complex and advanced stage cancer.
I'm back in Telluride on the mountain skiing. I feel strong and healthy.
Advanced medicine and technology.
And I am a survivor.
The warm embrace of the Spirit and the power of prayer.
These are happy tears.
Please go to cancercenter.com/faith. Appointments available now. Cancer Treatment Centers of America. Care that never quits.
Welcome back to the 700 Club. A miraculous story out of Ohio. 3 Cleveland women who went missing around 10 years ago have been found alive. The women were found in this house on a quiet Cleveland street after a neighbor heard one of them screaming for help. Amanda Berry disappeared in 2003, the day before her 17th birthday. Inside that house, police also found Gina DeJesus, missing since the age of 14, and Michelle Knight, who vanished in 2002 at the age of 21. Police say 3 Hispanic brothers in their 50s are in custody. The investigation continues. The United Nations says Syrian rebels have used chemical weapons in their fight against the Assad regime. A UN investigator says they found evidence the Free Syrian Army used the nerve agent sarin, but the United Nations say they cannot offer concrete proof about that. Rebel forces deny the claim, and the White House says it's highly likely the Assad regime was behind those chemical attacks instead. You can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com. Stay tuned. Pat and Terry will be back with more of the 700 Club after this.
Hi, I'm Chuck Woolery. You know, over the years, you've heard me say 2 and 2, but now I'm here to talk about 3 for free. If you're struggling with pain and infection from old-style catheters, then you need Medical Direct Club's new virtually pain-free disposable catheters. Right now, you can get Medical Direct Club's 3 for free sample pack with 1 self-lubricating catheter, 1 polished eyelet catheter, and a travel-size catheter. You get your free pack, see which one's right for you.
You use an old-style catheter, they're rough, they're very painful. The new ones, virtually pain-free.
You know, Medicare and your insurance now pay for up to 200 of these virtually pain-free catheters per month at little or no cost to you. And if our catheters aren't virtually pain-free, then we'll pick them up for free. You'll never know unless you try them.
Call now to get your 3 for free sample pack.
Call toll-free 1-800-206-3360. That's 1-800-206-3360. Call now.
To listen to our top songs of the week, go to CBN Radio at cbn.com.
Well, we want to answer some of the email questions that you've sent in, so we're going to bring it on right now. And Pat, this first one is from Jazzy, who says, I've been a Christian ever since I was 5 years old, and I'm 19 now. I was always told to pray, read the Bible, and then I'll go to heaven. Now that I'm older, I'm ready to have a real relationship with God, but how do I do it? When I try, I revert back to my old ways and start praying for things I want. Am I on the right track?
Oh, Jazzy, I like your name. That's an interesting Jazzy. Okay. Anyhow, no, you're not on the right track. What you need to do is fall in love with Jesus. I mean, have you ever been in love? Do you have somebody you love? It's a love affair. He died for you. He loves you. And you need to get in a relationship where you worship him and you tell him you love him and he tells you he loves you, and he begins to share with you the deep things on his heart and you share what's on your heart. And you thank him for what he's done and you worship him and you adore him. And he in turn will give you the desire of your heart. That's what it is. It's deep calls to deep. You know, that's what prayer is. It's not some formula. It's not some mechanical thing. It is love affair. You know, can you imagine a man going out with his girlfriend and he said, now let's see what the book says here. I'm supposed to say this, I'm supposed to touch this, I'm supposed to whisper that. No way. I mean, there's got to be some spontaneity somewhere, and that's what it is. All right, what else?
This is Ruth, who says, if they plan to prosecute officers in the armed forces if they share their faith in Christ, where does this leave the many chaplains in the armed forces? Will they attempt to redefine chaplains?
I'm not sure who's behind all this. I think some screwballs are behind it. I don't think the Army will go for some of the extreme things that are being proposed. But of course they won't redefine chaplains. Chaplains have got to be free. They've got to be. And if the Army tries to rein them in, there'll be an outcry. But they're people who try to force us to conform to them. All right.
This is Pedro, who says, I've been a Christian since the age of 13. I've seen people speak in tongues and cry. I believe the Holy Spirit touches you in these ways. But at the church I attend, I've seen people lose control and look like they're having seizures. They knock down chairs and move rows and bang themselves up against walls. They claim it was the Holy Spirit that touched them. The Bible says that God is a God of order. So I'm questioning if I'm in the right church and if these actions are from God.
Well, I think you're definitely in the wrong church, but it sounds like that's fanaticism. Look, we have flesh and we have spirit. And when the spirit the flesh resists the spirit, you'll find all kinds of physical manifestations. For example, it's like a wire. If you have heavy resistance, high ohms in a wire, it will get hot. If the wire will conduct electricity, which it's supposed to, it won't get hot. You don't want your wires in your house getting hot. You want them to light lights. The same thing with the power of God. It's there to heal. It's to bless. It's to illuminate. It's not to have people jump and bark and roll on the floor and climb the wall. That's fleshly manifestations. Get out of that place. What's next?
This is a viewer who says, my mother said it was prophesied before my birth that I would become a preacher. A man approached my mother to tell her this. He said that he had been led by God to travel across a few states to give her this message. Would God really communicate something of this nature?
Yes, he certainly would. I don't know if that particular guy was God's messenger, but he will. I was reading today about how God sent an angel, and the angel said, I am Gabriel. I stand in the presence of God. I've come to tell you your wife's going to have a baby, and he will be great in the sight of the Lord. There was the same angel came later to a young virgin whose name was Mary and said, you're going to bring forth a son. He'll be called the Son of God. So these messengers do happen. In your case, I don't know if this guy was for real or not, but I certainly would give it credence until you find out otherwise.
So what would a young person do, Pat, when a word's been spoken over them like that? I mean, you don't become a preacher because the word's been spoken.
No,
the word is just a...
Of course, you'll have to get a witness in your own heart, but that will be a type of confirmation. Yes. And in the mouth of two or more witnesses, everything needs to be established. God will have to show it to you, but it'll certainly be strong confirmation.
Okay, this is Lisa who says, my 12-year-old says it takes a while before God hears our prayers. He says it takes time for the sound to travel. Does God hear prayers right away?
Your kid is too smart by half. I think it's like the air around us. It doesn't take time for you to breathe in the air. The speed of thought is instant. It's faster than the speed of light. And I can think today about a distant galaxy that's thousands of light years away, and I can visualize it immediately. But when we pray, the Holy Spirit, God's within us. The Father's within us. So in a sense, we're talking to somebody right here. You know, you don't have to wait a while for your prayer to go through all the channels. So tell your kid, you know, he's got one science class, but he needs another one. All right, what else?
The heavenly one, right?
The heavenly one, right.
Well, that's all the time we have for your email today, but we do thank you for it. We love hearing from you. Well, up next, church was the only place she felt safe, and her minister was the only man she trusted.
I was sexually assaulted by the pastor. I was devastated. I remember praying to God saying, if this is what church is like, then I don't want any part of it.
See what happens when her husband doesn't believe her and he refuses to leave that church.
I moved up.
I moved up.
We've moved up.
CBN partners are moving up in order to give more people hope. Partners who increase their existing monthly pledge move up to the next giving level, bringing their compassion to children and adults here and in 36 countries around the world. Thank you, CBN partners, for all you do, because when you move up, thousands of hurting people move up in life as well.
Houston, I've moved up.
I got a boosted drop-in.
We're from Publishers Clearinghouse.
We did it! We did it! Did you bring the money? Tell my dad how much we won.
Sorry, Arnold. We're here for Willis.
What you talking about, man?
Okay, that wasn't real, but this is, and you could be next.
Watch for the Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes or go to PCH.com and enter. June 30th, you could win $1 million plus $5,000 a week for life.
Katrina Sweet was 11 years old when her stepfather first raped her. But she was a married woman when the next man assaulted her, and she was in the one place where she had grown to feel safe, her church, with the one man in the world she completely trusted, her pastor.
Katrina Sweet spent most of her life searching for stability. When she was only 11, her stepfather began molesting her.
He stole my innocence. He took my innocence from me. He took my ability to trust. I became very afraid to do the simple things. I'm afraid to be in a room by myself, afraid to sleep at night.
Church was the only place Katrina found solace.
I grew up in church, and whenever I was there, I always felt this incredible peace.
Katrina finally told her mother. Her mother refused to listen.
No one said a word. I felt rejected. I felt abandoned by my mother. I felt that she was placing her husband over my protection and my safety.
The pain became too much, and she moved in with her grandmother. Her abuser was gone, but the pain lingered.
It left a void in me of wanting to be loved, wanted to be affirmed. I wanted someone to look at me as being special. So the first guy who said, "Hey, you're pretty, you're beautiful," then I gave myself to him.
Before long, Katrina became pregnant. By now, she was tired, confused, and hurt. She thought back about the peace that she felt in church as a child, and she gave her life to Christ. Over time, Katrina's faith grew. She married a Christian man and had another child. She also helped the pastor with secretarial work.
I saw him as a father figure. I saw him as someone that I could trust.
But soon, that image was destroyed.
I was sexually assaulted by the pastor. I was devastated. I thought church was different. I thought church people were different. I remember praying to God saying, if this is what church is like, then I don't want any part of it.
To make things worse, her husband didn't believe her. He refused to leave the church.
When I was younger, I blamed my mother for not protecting me or people in my family. When that happened with the pastor, I blamed God.
Katrina divorced her husband and left with her 2 children. After that, she became involved in a series of relationships. Each time, she wanted the same thing, to feel safe, wanted, loved. One day, she was with her boyfriend when his phone rang.
He looked at the caller ID, and I said, "Who was that?" And he whispered softly in my ear, and he said, "Your replacement. Your replacement." I can't even describe to you what that did to me and how that made me feel. I'm thinking the whole time how ugly I was, how useless I was. I'm without purpose. No one would ever want you. Why are you still here? Just end it. Just end it.
Katrina left the house and drove to a bridge.
I remember sitting in my car looking at the bridge thinking, this is it. Why not just end it here? And sitting in the car pounding on the steering wheel, weeping because I felt just so useless.
But her tears were interrupted by thoughts of her children.
I envision my children seeing my body pour from the waters. I didn't want that image to be with them for the remainder of their life.
Katrina knew then she needed God.
I remember praying one word. I cried one word. Help. Help is what I said. I feel like God heard my cry for help, and I didn't know how my life was going to turn out. I just had a sense that everything was going to be okay.
She found a church, and a woman there invited her to a women's retreat. There, she rededicated her life to Christ.
I didn't understand it all then. I didn't have the full picture, but I knew that as time went on, God was with me. Most importantly, I knew that I had a relationship with Him and that He was with me, and I wanted to learn as much as I could learn about Him.
Today, Katrina is an author, motivational speaker, and founder of a nonprofit called Patch. She says she's grateful that God healed her emotionally so that she can share Christ's love with others.
I never thought anything good would happen for me. I always saw only good things happening to other people. I feel that God has restored everything that I've lost. Everything that I thought wouldn't be, God has and is making it into reality.
And God can restore your broken areas too. That's why they call him the Redeemer. He brings back to life, gives back that which was taken from you. You know, the Bible says that we are created, that God loved us so much that we are created in his own image and likeness. He put a little bit of himself in us, and he wants us to hunger after him. But throughout life, you know, the enemy of God comes along, and what is his greatest delight? To mar that image, to make us question our value, to make us question whether there's a God who loves us, to separate us from him. And yet Jesus gave us this promise. He said, I'll never leave you or forsake you. He's the Alpha and the Omega, always, always with us. The love that we look for in other places, whether it's because of our brokenness or just because we have a need to be loved, we can only find in him. There's a hole inside of us created to be filled by the one who created us, who created the whole universe and loved us enough to make it a gift to us. If you're broken today, if you're listening to Katrina's story and you're saying, I just can't hang on anymore. I've tried it all. I've done it all. Nothing works. If you haven't fallen in love with Jesus, like Pat talked about earlier in the show, then you haven't tried the only thing that works, but you can today. You can start right now. This is what you do. You say, Jesus, I'm a sinner. I have blown it. I've made mistakes. I've fallen short of the mark. I need you. Forgive my sins. Forgive my sins. Come into my life. Come into my heart. I want to know you. I want you to be the Lord of my life and the Savior of my soul. Fill me with your Holy Spirit. Teach me your ways. And ask that in Jesus' name. It's a conversation. Just open your heart and bare your soul to him and invite him in. He is the Redeemer, the healer, the one, the only one who can make you whole. If you have a need you'd like someone to pray about with you, call that toll-free number that's on your screen, 1-800-759-0700. The person who answers has already prayed the prayer we just talked about. Pat?
Thanks, Terry. Well, tomorrow we go behind the music with hip-hop star Andy Mineo. And we leave you today with these words from Paul's letter to the Colossians. Continue earnestly in prayer, being vigilant in it with thanksgiving. Well, that's all the time we've got. Remember, the telephones are available. If you need help, you need prayer, if you've accepted the Lord, if there's somehow we can help you all day long, just pick up the phone. It's a toll-free number, 1-800-759-0700. Thanks so much for being with us, and Lord willing, we'll see you on another edition of the 700 Club tomorrow. So for Lee and for Terry and all of us, this is Pat Robertson. Goodbye. God bless you.
My whole neck snapped down and back up, and just pain shot from the top of my head all the way down through my spine, down my right leg. I mean, just a hot, shooting, burning pain. My neck was so tight that it's like literally I could probably move it about that far, and that was it. There was a testimony on, and I said, you know, Lord, I need to be healed. And as soon as I said that, Pat came on and he said, I want to pray right now.
You twisted your neck and you could almost feel something popped out on the side of your neck. Just put your hand over there on it. In the name of Jesus, you'll feel heat and you will be completely
And as I
healed.
turned my neck, I turned it and it just went. God just supernaturally brought it perfectly into alignment, instantaneously. God has healed me. He's no respecter of persons. God has healing for you as well.